It is late 1990, deep in the jungle of central Vietnam, near the border with Laos. A storm is rolling in fast, and a local man named Ho Khanh is running for cover. He is a lumberjack, out searching for firewood and agarwood the way he has done for years, when the sky turns black and the rain starts hammering the canopy above him. He presses himself against a wall of limestone, looking for anywhere to hide from the downpour, and that is when he feels it. Wind, strong, steady wind, pushing outward from a crack in the rock, as if the mountain itself is breathing. Mist is pouring out of the opening along with it, and from somewhere deep inside he can hear the unmistakable roar of a river that should not exist inside solid stone. He does not go in. There is no equipment, no rope, no way to survive whatever is down there, and the storm is only getting worse. In this part of Vietnam, that hesitation is not simple caution. The mountains of Quang Binh province sit just west of the old Ho Chi Minh Trail, a landscape still scarred from decades of war, and local villagers here have long treated the region's caves with genuine unease, some out of respect for the forest, some out of fear of what might still be buried in it. So he does the only thing he can. He remembers the wind, the mist, the sound of rushing water, and he walks away, telling himself he will come back. He does not realize it yet, but he's just stood at the mouth of what will one day be recognized as the largest cave passage on planet Earth. And it will take him 18 years to find that opening again. This is the true story of Hang Son Doong, Vietnam's mountain river cave, and what scientists have found inside it since is stranger, more dangerous, and more genuinely unexplained than almost anyone realizes. It is a story with a lost river, a wall that took a full year and specialized climbing gear to defeat, an underground jungle with its own weather, creatures still unknown to science, and a submerged passage that, to this day, nobody has ever reached the end of. Before we go further, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because what this cave hides is only getting stranger the deeper explorers go. For nearly 2 decades after that storm, the cave Ho Khanh had stumbled into simply vanished. He told a pair of British cavers, Howard and Deb Limbert, who were working in the region, searching for cave systems inside Phong Nha-Ke Bang National Park, about the wind and the river sound coming from the jungle floor. They were intrigued immediately. A cave that breathed like that, with a river roaring somewhere inside it, could be enormous. But when they asked Ho Khanh to lead them back to it, he could not. The jungle in that part of Vietnam is merciless, dense, trackless, and disorienting, and the entrance he had found by accident during a single storm had folded itself back into the landscape. Search after search failed. Years passed. The Limberts kept exploring other caves in the region, cataloging dozens of them, while the one cave that might have mattered more than all the others stayed hidden, swallowed by vines and rock and time. Then, in 2008, on another trip gathering forest products, Ho Khanh found it again. This time he made sure not to lose it. He marked the route carefully, and in April of 2009 he led Howard Limbert, Deb Limbert, and a full expedition team from the British Cave Research Association, working alongside Vietnam's Hanoi University of Science, back into the jungle toward the opening. The passage did not just continue. It kept opening wider and wider, chamber after chamber, until their lights could no longer reach the ceiling or the far walls. On April 14, 2009, the British Vietnam Caving Expedition Team announced to the world that they had found the largest cave passage ever measured on Earth. In Vietnamese tradition, the person who discovers a cave has the right to help name it, so Ho Khanh sat down with the expedition team and chose Son Doong, meaning Mountain River Cave, after the valley and the river system that had led him there in the first place. But even then, they had not found all of it. Roughly 6 kilometers in, the 2009 team ran straight into a wall. Not a dead end exactly, but a towering barrier of hardened flowstone and calcite, roughly 90 meters tall, rising up out of the darkness so high that their headlamps could not even find its top. They had no idea what was on the other side, or whether there was anything at all. They nicknamed it the Great Wall of Vietnam. They were forced to leave without knowing the answer. For an entire year, the true size of Son Doong remained an open question, an itch nobody could scratch. It took until March of 2010 for the team to return with full climbing equipment, and even then, scaling it took 2 full days of drilling anchors and rigging ropes in near total darkness. From the ground, none of them could see how far up that wall actually went, which meant nobody could rule out that it simply did not end, that Son Doong might terminate in an unclimbable dead space nobody would ever fully map. 2 cavers, Gareth Sewell and Howard Clark, were the first to reach the top. When they did, they saw daylight in the distance. Beyond the wall lay another 400 to 500 meters of passage, leading to a second entrance the team had never known existed. With that final stretch mapped, Son Doong measured close to 9 kilometers long, with a volume of roughly 38. 5 million cubic meters, 5 times larger than Deer Cave in Malaysia, which had held the title of the world's largest cave until that moment. Senior karst geologists, including Dr. Phong, reviewed the data and confirmed it. Hang Son Doong was the largest natural cave on the planet, and adventure tourism to the site began that same year, tightly restricted to roughly 1,000 visitors annually, guided by a single licensed operator. To understand why this discovery shook the scientific and caving world so completely, you need to understand just how enormous Son Doong actually is. In some sections, the main passage stands 200 meters tall and 150 meters wide. That is large enough to fit an entire city block inside it, complete with 40-story skyscrapers, and still have room to spare. A Boeing 747 could glide through parts of it without its wingtips touching either wall. And this is not empty space. Twice along its length, the ceiling has collapsed entirely, creating 2 massive sinkholes the explorers named dolines. Sunlight pours down through these openings, hundreds of feet down into the darkness, and where that light lands, something extraordinary happens. Trees grow, real trees, some over 40 meters tall, along with dense undergrowth, moss, and vines, forming what explorers now call the Garden of Eden, a genuine primeval forest thriving underground in the heart of a mountain. Because sunlight, moisture, and cool cave air collide in these doline chambers, the cave generates its own localized weather. Clouds of mist form and drift through the passage. Persistent fog rolls across the underground jungle floor. Explorers who have stood inside it describe the atmosphere as otherworldly, and several have compared the scene to the alien jungles of the film Avatar. This is not folklore or exaggeration. It is one of the only places on Earth where a cave has grown its own functioning ecosystem, complete with its own internal climate, sealed away from the outside world for millions of years. Even the names the explorers gave these places carry the sense of disbelief they felt standing inside them. The first doline, roughly 450 meters deep from its rim to the cave floor, was named "Watch Out for Dinosaurs," after a half-joking remark one of the British cavers made when he saw the primeval, fern-choked landscape opening up in front of him and pictured warning his own children to be careful of what might be living in it. The numbers behind its formation are almost as staggering as the cave itself. The limestone that makes up the mountains of Phong Nha-Ke Bang National Park is part of the oldest karst system in Asia, laid down somewhere between 400 and 450 million years ago, long before dinosaurs, long before most complex life had even moved onto land. And yet Son Doong itself, the hollow space carved out of all that ancient stone, is geologically young, estimated at only around 3 million years old. It was carved not slowly over unimaginable eons, but relatively fast in geological terms by the Rao Thuong River, an underground waterway whose water is naturally acidic enough to dissolve limestone efficiently as it flows. Stand at the bottom of the cave's main entrance shaft, a nearly 100-meter vertical drop that visitors now descend on ropes, and you can hear that same river still roaring below, still carving, still shaping the cave in real time, right now, while you are listening to this. Inside, the formations are just as extreme as the scale. Not far from it stands the tallest stalagmite ever recorded inside any cave, reaching close to 80 meters high, taller than the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. These structures took millions of years to build, drop by mineral-laden drop, and walking beneath them by a headlamp, explorers say, feels closer to standing inside a cathedral built by something other than human hands than anything resembling a normal cave tour. Geologists value these formations for more than their scale, too. Stalagmites like these grow in thin, measurable layers, and each layer locks in a chemical fingerprint of the climate and rainfall conditions that existed the year it formed. In caves elsewhere in the world, scientists have used exactly this kind of formation to reconstruct thousands of years of ancient monsoon patterns and shifts in regional climate long before written records existed. And researchers studying Son Doong's own towering columns believe they are quietly sitting on a similar archive, an 80-meter tall timeline of Southeast Asia's climate history that nobody has finished reading yet. Then there are the cave pearls, scattered across certain pools and flat calcite floors deep inside Son Doong, are perfectly rounded stones, smooth, glossy, and symmetrical, ranging from the size of a pea to the size of a baseball. They form when acidic, mineral-rich water drips steadily onto a tiny grain of sand or rock fragment, and the gentle motion of the pooling water rotates that grain slowly over centuries, coating it evenly in calcite until it becomes a nearly perfect sphere. They look manufactured. They look like something deliberately shaped and polished and placed there. But every geologist who has studied them agrees they are entirely natural, a slow, patient mineral process with no intelligence behind it at all. Just water, stone, and time working in total darkness for thousands of years without a single person ever seeing it happen. The living world inside Son Doong is where things get even stranger, because a cave this size, sealed off for so long, does not just host a few stray bats. It hosts an entire hidden food web. Near the Twilight Zone's costly entrances, explorers have documented troops of monkeys, flying foxes, and deeper in, past where sunlight can reach, researchers have found blind cavefish that have lost their pigmentation entirely after generations spent in total darkness, along with woodlice, millipedes, spiders, and scorpions that share the same unsettling traits: no eyes, and skin so pale it is almost transparent, as though evolution simply stopped bothering with features that darkness had made pointless. To date, biologists studying Son Doong have confirmed at least 7 species entirely new to science emerging from its depths, and researchers openly admit that number is very likely incomplete. Every expedition that goes back in still finds something that was not documented before, hiding under a rock, tucked into a crevice, or crawling silently along a wall no headlamp had ever swept across until that exact moment. It is worth pointing out, too, that the local porters who helped guide expeditions through the cave, men who grew up in these mountains and know the jungle better than any outside scientist ever will, are frequently the most uneasy people on the trip. Photographers and researchers who have spent nights camped inside Son Doong have described local guides deliberately choosing campsites positioned so they can still see a sliver of open sky through one of the dolines, because for many of them, raised on generations of caution about what these caves might hold, sleeping with no view of the surface at all is simply not something they are willing to do. And even after the Great Wall was finally climbed in 2010, Son Doong has continued to hand scientists new questions instead of closing the book on old ones. In March of 2019, a team of cave divers went back to explore the underground river system running beneath the first doline, the very river Ho Khanh heard roaring from outside the cave nearly 3 decades earlier. They descended to a depth of 78 meters and mapped a submerged passage stretching roughly 93 meters. They did not find the end of it. Nobody knows for certain how far that submerged river system actually extends, or what, if anything, lies at the bottom of it. Think about that for a moment. Surveyors have identified at least one nearby passage that may connect directly to Son Doong's known system. If that connection is ever confirmed, it would add roughly another 1.6 million cubic meters to the cave's already record-breaking volume, meaning the largest cave on Earth might, right now, actually be even larger than the official number the world has been using since 2010. Nobody currently knows for certain either way, and the only real way to find out is to send another well-equipped team back down into that same darkness to check, carefully, one measured step at a time. Zoom out even further, and the mystery only deepens. Son Doong is not an isolated anomaly. It sits inside Phong Nha-Ke Bong National Park, a UNESCO World Heritage Site that is honeycombed with more than 150 separate caves and karst passages, many of which have never been formally surveyed at all. Some are barely explored beyond their entrances. Others have not been entered by scientists in any capacity. Every single one of them sits in the same 400-million-year-old limestone that produced Son Doong, carved by the same kinds of acidic rivers over the same kinds of geological timescales, which means, statistically, there is no reason to assume Son Doong is the only cave of its kind hiding beneath that jungle. There could be other chambers just as vast, just as strange, just as alive, still completely sealed off, still waiting for someone to feel that same gust of warm, mineral-scented wind rising from a crack in the rock the way Ho Khanh did back in 1990. That comparison is not an exaggeration either. To this day, fewer people have physically stood inside Hang Son Doong than have stood on the summit of Mount Everest. The Vietnamese government strictly limits access to roughly 1,000 permitted visitors a year, all guided by a single licensed operator, all moving through a controlled route with ropes, harnesses, and safety teams, because even now, with the cave fully mapped, it remains genuinely dangerous. Flash floods can seal off sections of the passage for months at a time during the rainy season. The descent into the main dough line is a nearly 100-meter vertical drop. The climb up the Great Wall of Vietnam still requires 2 full days of technical rope work for research teams working off the standard tourist route. This is not a cave you casually wander into. It is a cave that, even in an age of satellites and drones and LiDAR mapping, still has to be earned one careful step at a time. Every year, when the rainy season arrives, the Rao Thuong River swells hard enough to seal off entire sections of the passage completely, cutting the cave off from any expedition or tour group for months at a time. A natural lockdown that resets itself like clockwork, and that nobody, not even with all of today's technology, has found a way to predict with total precision. So what is actually confirmed here, and what is still genuinely unresolved? The confirmed facts are already remarkable enough on their own. Son Doong is the largest known cave passage on Earth by volume, discovered by accident by a Vietnamese lumberjack in 1990, lost again for 18 years, and finally surveyed in full between 2009 and 2010 by a joint British and Vietnamese expedition. It contains a functioning internal ecosystem, complete with its own rainforest, its own weather, its own underground river, and species that are still being formally documented today. It sits inside limestone that is hundreds of millions of years old. Yet the cave itself is a geological infant by comparison, carved out in the last few million years by a river that is, at this very moment, still cutting deeper into the rock beneath the jungle. What remains genuinely open, what scientists have not yet answered, is just as compelling. Nobody knows how far the submerged river system beneath the cave actually extends, because the 2019 dive team, despite reaching a depth of 78 meters, never found its end. Nobody has confirmed whether Son Doong connects to the nearby passage that could expand its volume even further. This is not some ancient legend lost to time, and it is not a discovery locked away in the 19th century when exploration tools were primitive. Son Doong was found the way it was found within living memory, using modern surveying equipment backed by National Geographic and Guinness World Records, and some of the most respected karst geologists alive today. A possible second chamber nobody has confirmed? An entire national park full of caves nobody has ever set foot inside. It raises an uncomfortable question that goes far beyond one cave in Vietnam. If the largest known cave on the planet was only found by accident during a single storm by one man taking shelter from the rain, how much of the world beneath our feet have we actually mapped? How many other Son Doongs are out there right now, breathing quietly into some jungle or mountainside, waiting for someone to feel that same gust of wind and decide, this time, to follow it inside? For now, nobody can answer that. Karst landscapes like the one beneath Phong Nha-Ke Bang are riddled with hidden voids that satellite imagery still struggles to detect reliably, especially under thick tropical canopy. LiDAR and ground-penetrating radar have gotten better, but they still miss things. And the only way to truly confirm what is down there is to physically go and look. The same slow, dangerous, unglamorous way Ho Khanh and the Limberts did it. Every rainy season reshapes parts of the region's cave systems. Every new expedition into Phong Nha-Ke Bang's unexplored passages has a real chance of finding something nobody has ever seen or cataloged before. That is not speculation or theory. That is simply the current, honest state of the science. And it is precisely why Son Doong continues to draw geologists, biologists, and explorers back year after year, long after the headlines about its discovery have faded. Maybe the deepest submerged passage beneath that first dough lane eventually connects to something even larger, an entirely separate cave system nobody has named yet. Maybe it simply narrows and closes, an ordinary underground river doing what underground rivers do. Nobody will know until someone dives deep enough or an entirely new entrance is stumbled upon the way Ho Khanh stumbled upon this one, by accident, in a storm, with nothing but wind and the sound of water to tell him something enormous was waiting in the dark. Until that day comes, Hang Son Doong remains exactly what it has been since 1990. Proof that even now, in an age when we can photograph galaxies billions of light years away, there are still places on our own planet, a few hundred meters beneath the jungle floor of central Vietnam, that no human being has ever seen. There is something almost humbling about that, if you sit with it for a second. We have rovers crawling across the surface of Mars right now, sending back pictures of a planet millions of kilometers away. And yet, a river running directly beneath a national park in Vietnam has never been traced to its source. We have mapped the ocean floor with sonar and satellites, have photographed nearly every square kilometer of dry land on Earth. And still, a lumberjack, sheltering from a rainstorm in 1990, stumbled onto something that had apparently gone unnoticed by everyone before him. That is not a failure of science. If anything, it is a reminder of just how much of this planet remains stubbornly, physically out of reach, hidden not by distance but by rock, water, and darkness that no camera in orbit can see through. Somewhere beneath that same limestone right now, in one of the more than 150 caves in Phong Nha-Ke Bang that have never been fully surveyed, there may be another passage just as large, just as strange, and just as alive as Son Doong, sitting in total silence, waiting for its own storm, its own accidental discovery, its own Ho Khanh to come looking for shelter from the rain. If you enjoyed this journey into the world's largest cave, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to leave a like before you go.